Hey, Nathan here, helping you become a better jungler. This is my patch 10.6 rundown. Obviously going to be from a jungler's perspective. My channel's all about helping you as a jungler. So everything you need to know for League of Legends as a jungler for patch 10.6. Okay, so let's jump straight into this here. Hello, children of the earth. I love this introduction from Riot. Don't know what they're trying to get across here. In this patch, we welcome the arrival of the new, trickier Wukong. So I am making this video about a day or two from the patch. I have played against it a bit in solo queue, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think about my initial thoughts for the rework, but we'll go into that further down these patch notes, and an update to matchmaking system so that less games have an unbalanced amount of autofilled players. I always, we'll actually take a look at this. I haven't taken a look at this yet, the specifics around what they're changing around this, but I mean, the only way you solve this is by having longer queue times. So I'm really curious to see what this really means. Especially, I play in OS, high elo, like our queue times are not very short at all. About 15, 20 minutes I'm sitting in queues. So, yeah, I mean, obviously I don't want to have autofill players in my game as little as possible. And I don't want to be autofilled myself because I just dodge if I get ADC or something like that. But, again, we'll take a look at that further down the track. Interested to see what they do there. The details are a lot more interesting than the broad explanation I give here. Okay, cool. We're also following up our last patch with a third round of jungle changes to non-jungle champions and a couple of additional system changes to continue helping top laners. Okay, so, I mean, I've talked a lot about the new junglers that they're sort of trying to add, like making all their abilities do more, they can just clear better, basically, is what they're changing. But I think there's still a lot of issues with the champions that they're adding in terms of, like, making it really viable, but obviously better for lower elos, and I think for very new players coming to the game, it's going to reduce that learning curve for the harder junglers that are sort of more viable in the meta. So I do like these changes, but in general I just don't think that these really mean much in terms of adding these non-jungle champions to the jungle. Okay, so highlights here. So we got a bunch of buffs, and this is very different from Riot. Riot usually have been nerfing, especially the last couple of patches. It's been about even, but this is a lot of buffs. Looking at junglers here, Hecarim, Kayn, Kindred. Urgot is getting buffed. So Urgot was a jungler-ish last season, but sort of dropped off a bit. We'll see what they do to change here. But obviously the big thing around this patch as well was also Death's Dance, which I have actually looked a bit into already, so I'll be talking about that when we get down to that. Nerfs, Aphilos, I always welcome Aphilos nerfs. I think that champ's still a little bit overtuned, and same with Senna. I actually have been banning Senna a lot in my solo queue games. Definitely welcome nerfs to that as well. Wukong says it's nerfed. Oh, sorry, adjust. Sorry, alright, never mind. That's the rework. Shaco, Garen, Darius. Garen, interesting. But again, we'll sort of be thinking this from more a jungler's perspective. But obviously, Darius and Garen were sort of added to the non-jungle pool as well a couple of patches ago. Okay, so here we go. Autofill balance in ranked. The solo/duo queue matchmaking system will now be less likely to create teams where do not have. Great. It's no secret that having an autofill player or two on your team feels rough. Absolutely, it's a huge disadvantage. With this change, we're letting matches wait a little longer to try and put an autofill player on both sides on the match. We're also looking at similar changes that make number of pre-mades on each team equal. In our first test, the changes were pretty well in isolation. Alright, so yeah, basically all they did is just get an increase in the time, which, I mean, it's better to get a high quality game than to rather get just a ridiculous game and everyone's auto-filled. So, I mean, I'm definitely happy to wait, but, I mean, there's no other real solution to this, I don't think. But they say if things continue to go well, we'll look to expand and change to other queues soon. I mean, yeah, I only really care about solo duo queue here. Alright, champions. So, Anivia. So, Anivia is, for certain champions in the jungle, the bane of my existence. Very, very tricky. I mean, obviously you can gank it pretty easily, but the fact that you sort of need to burn it, like Anivia that plays safe is just really annoying to play against. Anivia obviously has really good scaling. But you don't see her that often. She's more of like a one-trick champ. These changes here, actually, there was a lot of talk on PvE about her new Glacial Storm being uninterruptible, which looks like it hasn't gone through here. But they've still done some slight buffs. I don't think this is enough to warrant her to be Very popular pick. And I think Anivia in general, especially lower elos, like Anivia is a difficult champion to last hit with. So really a difficult champion to master, and not actually that fun, to be honest, as well. Alright, so Philos here. So Philos continues to dominate pro player, absolutely. I mean, even solo queue as well, I think she's really strong. So a bunch of nerfs here. I won't go too much into these, to be honest. I don't exactly know too much what they mean. I don't play Philos, I don't play ADC, but I'm looking big jumps in numbers here. So this is good to see, but probably still be viable, I would say. Okay, Darius. Darius is crossing the line after all the top lane and fighter item rework. We're giving him a light nerf with an emphasis on making upper hand more of an important strategic decision. So instantly looking at this, I mean, 45 mana to 70. In terms of early game, I mean, this is a big nerf. I mean, obviously double this is 90, 45 to 90, but I mean, you could definitely need to be a little bit more cautious with your E. In terms of like later stages of the game, doesn't really matter. He's fine in terms of his mana pool. Yeah, I mean, obviously Darius in the jungle, I tried it a little bit about. Again, I think it's more of a lower elo thing. Definitely more better in the top lane. I think he definitely has a lot of issues and a lot of hard matchups in the jungle to be viable. Alright, Draven, bit of a buff, move speed increase, that's okay. Don't really see Dravens too much in solo queue, and Garen nerfs. Okay, so magic resist growth pretty significantly reduced. I mean, I guess if he's playing top lane, like, there is some AP top lane chance, but he's mostly versing, you know, the Camille's, Aurelia's, all that sort of AD stuff. And some crit strike ratio, so definitely a little bit of a nerf, but I think that Garen actually was starting, so Garen actually has a problem of, like, not being played enough. So I think this is a little odd. Again, I don't know what it's like in lower elos. I know he's sort of a popular champion, but I think that he was actually in an okay spot, to be honest. I didn't see why they needed to really nerf him here. Hecarim. Okay, jungler. So we're encouraging Hecarim to take more risks with max range engages. Fear duration increased. That's pretty nice. Up to 0.5 seconds here. Okay, so I played Hecarim a lot. I played Hecarim to Master Tier last season. In general, you don't... max range ults is like very risky to pull off. And obviously you have a really high chance of either missing it, or you can easily just flash it or use an ability. Because you can see, because it's max range, you can see Hecarim coming from a mile away. It's super easy to dodge. Ideally, you're using your ults as... so you engage with it, especially early mid game. Obviously late game, I think max range engage is good, but ideal situation is using actually R as like a finishing move or an execute, or so you E in, do all your burst damage, and then sort of just ult to sort of finish them off if they try and escape, or to follow up a flash. So you're never really like max range in. Try not to anyways, Hecarim. Again, it's very easy to dodge a max range, but I do like these buffs to him. I think that Hecarim, so Hecarim, I don't exactly know why I stopped sort of playing him. I mean, obviously he has his early game issues. He's just not as strong in terms of, like, you know, the Rek'Sais, Elise, Jarvan, the early game jungler, so he definitely can get punished, but I still think he's definitely very strong for just hardcore solo carrying games 1v5, especially in lower elos, but high elo, I think that he's very easy to shut down, especially a lot of the support champions, like the really tanky champs, like Leona and stuff. Really difficult to gank those lanes, and you can get turned and killed really easily. So yeah, I think Hecarim's having a bit of a rough time in the meta at the moment. Okay, Kayn. So Kayn, they keep playing around with Kayn around his transformation here, and I talked about this in my last review. Like the transformation itself, like that's not his problem as a champion. His problem is literally just the incredibly weak early ganks. And in terms of like, especially like blue Kayn versus red Kayn, like red Kayn, going red Kayn, obviously it's really good against certain comps, like tanky champions, but I feel like his build, like if I get behind and I'm just struggling to build that Black Cleaver, that's just the worst situation possible. And I feel like you really need, but you need Black Cleaver, potentially like Death's Dance now, GA and stuff like that to really get rolling. And I think that this, and Spirit Visage and stuff like that, I think that this is, Kayn's has a lot of issues. I don't know if it's his numbers or just, he just feels just not good. Like Blue Kayn, I don't play enough to really talk about. There's obviously a lot of Blue Kayn one tricks out there that are pretty devastating, but again, I think that these changes don't really mean much. I mean, sure, you can get your form earlier, but especially for Red Kayn, by the time you get your form, you actually need items as well as your form. Blue Kayn, a little bit more of a different story, but yeah, so yeah, the don't think this changes much for Kane. I still think he's struggling in the current meta. Obviously, if you one-trick him, I think he's definitely very good in solo queue. But you do need to definitely master him to understand your limits and understand, you know, especially how to concede early when the pressure's on. Okay, Kindred. So another jungler here. Basic attack damage, growth and mana increased. W health restore increased. R heal increased. Okay, so I am not a Kindred player. And Kindred is pretty annoying to verse, to be honest. Obviously, you really need to keep track of his, make sure he's not getting stacks, use your jungle. So the thing I don't like about playing against Kindred, I feel like I'm too much on the reacting rather than being proactive. But obviously, he's definitely very weak early game. You can definitely shut him down. These changes, so this doesn't really mean much, and this is very tiny here. Wolf's Frenzy, Health Restore, increased. This is pretty good. And Lamb's Respite. Okay, I guess the thing with Lamb's Respite, sure, the heal is good, but I mean, he's healing everyone, right? So I don't know about this change at all. I don't think this means that much. Like, they've increased the heal a little bit, but again, everyone's getting healed anyway if they're in the Lamb's Respite. So, yeah, I mean, I think that he's starting to get to a really good place, and maybe these things will help a little bit, maybe not too much, but he's definitely more one of the difficult jungle champions to play against. Playing against a really good Kindred player, really annoying to verse, but yeah, I think Kindred's always going to be that sort of that niche pick that unless you sort of like one trick him or really good against like champs that have lots of burst abilities that you can just ult, counter all those and just constant sustain damage, Kindred's really good for. Okay, so Morgana, base move speed increase, E-shield increase. Haven't seen Morgana too much anymore. She's obviously been actually a pretty good counter to champs like Leona, obviously with Leona Misfortune meta sort of popping up. As a jungler, I really hate versing Morgana in the bot lane, especially the pool that I'm sort of playing. Like, I'm playing a lot of Rek'Sai recently. She literally counters me. She's got her Q, her ult, her spell shield for my knockup. Really annoying. So yeah, don't really want to see Morgana back. I mean, I think that in general, I mean, it's more of a bot lane thing. I think Morgana is obviously always going to be a really solid support champ. Rise, that's okay. He's a mid lane champ, not too worried about him. I mean, Rise gets buffed to nerf here and there. It's like, right, really need to, like, Rise, get into the, like, Rise meta. Like, you just sit there, outscale everyone. I just don't like sort of the play style of Rise, especially playing with Rise. I feel really forced to come to his lane. But, I mean, obviously you can potentially use him as a good win condition. But, yeah, again, pretty difficult champ for mid laners to play. Don't see it too much. Center. Okay, so Sports Center is currently too strong. Absolutely agree. I still ban this champ. Let's see the nerfs here. Attack damage per soul, 0.75. This is pretty considerable. And weaken soul duration. Cooldown, 4 seconds to 6 seconds early. So definitely her early strength is going to be nerfed a little bit. I mean, the thing about Senna is she's sort of like good in lane phase and scales. So you just can't have both the best worlds there. So I think she's just still needs a little bit more nerfs though. But I think that these changes are definitely very welcome. So I like this. Shaco. So Arclone basic attack damage decrease. AD Shaco is just a bit too strong right now. So we're aiming for a soft nerf. And what they've done here is literally just changed the total attack damage from Hallucinate. My problem with this is that, so when a Shaco R's, again, playing against a Shaco, like, you're not going to just sit there and just take the auto attacks. You're going to be running away. So these changes don't make too much sense. Maybe you'll be able to survive like an extra auto attack maybe or something like that. But yeah, this is, I wouldn't say this is too much of a nerf to Shaco. Yeah, I mean, AP Shaco I think is actually more really annoying to verse than AD Shaco. I feel like AD Shaco you can potentially deal with, but AP Shaco with those boxes, those fears, can be really annoying to verse, especially around objectives like Dragon, Rift Heralds, and stuff like that, and even counter ganks, really difficult. So yeah, I don't think this really means too much. Again, you're going to be running away from Hallucinate anyway. This isn't going to change much. Soraka, so obviously Soraka's been butchered a lot from trying to, Ryder being really not liking her in the top lane. So we're putting some power back into Starcore now, so she's been buffed slightly. Scourge of Soraka top no longer threatening time, space we know. I mean, I still think Soraka top can be played certain situations, but yeah, definitely not as popular anymore, and haven't been seeing it too much in support. TF. So blue card. I mean, I don't see TF much in solo queue-ish. I mean, really annoying champion to versus a jungler because obviously when he gets to 6, you really need to think about your ganks because he can obviously come to a gank very quickly, counter gank. What they've done here is actually increase the blue card AP ratio pretty significantly here. This is pretty big. Not too sure how much this changes much, but obviously you want to be using your yellow card a lot for the stuns. This is probably more of a lane phase thing. Again, don't know much about TF to really comment on that. Urgot, with Purge being Urgot's go-to ability max first, his other abilities can feel crummy to use. So yeah, Urgot was sort of really OP in top lane and jungle around this time last year. Sort of dropped off a bit. So I do like these buffs, especially thinking about maybe bringing him back to the jungle. And again, especially with the death stance, which we'll go into in a second. So, I mean, these are pretty sort of big, 0.25 seconds can make a difference. Stun duration and also slow duration here. So making Urgot a little bit more stickier, which is what he's really, really good for. And obviously, if these two abilities compensate his W, because the more sticky you are, the quicker you can get on people, the longer you can be getting your Ws off. So I think this is pretty good for Urgot, making him a little bit more come back into the meta. Vega, some buffs for him. Okay, Wukong. Rework. Passive. Increase stats for fighting champs instead of base proximity. So they talk a lot about here about they want him to be more trickier, trickster play style. And I have played against him a bit. So, obviously Wukong was sort of known before this rework as sort of just like full AD one-shot. The thing that sort of changed a lot about him is that what they've done here is they've looks like they want to make him a lot more tanky here. So here they're increasing his max health regen. His E no longer scales off AD. It's so if from total attack damage, it's now bonus attack damage. So it's not going to be just like getting like the serrated Dirk Rush, like going all in on the AD. I feel like that what they're trying to do here is make him more of a bruiser. Sorry, not the Q here, it was the E. So yeah, so the E doesn't scale off AD anymore. So this is now AP, which means that, I mean, his E was sort of his one-shot ability. So this is now essentially gone from him. But in terms of like, where was it here? His ult now does percentage max health damage. So again, I think that he's actually going to be pretty more viable in terms of a bruiser. And I have versed some bruiser Wukongs, and they're actually very annoying to verse, especially how tanky they can be with stone skin. In terms of being a jungler as well, I mean, this is, I sort of view this, so this man in the mirror here, bonuses are increased by 62.5% for 5 seconds every time Wukong or his decoy hits an enemy champion or monster. So I view this sort of like the grit for Graves. So I think this makes his jungle clearing really healthy, really tanky. So yeah, his Q now actually scales with Wukong's attack speed, but again, I think that what Riot are really trying to do here is more bring him into the bruiser, just really annoying to deal with bruiser type champion. So yeah, I think that this is going to be really interesting to see if he actually becomes really viable in the top lane or jungle. I haven't played it myself much. I might start trying it out. Yeah, but in terms of, I mean, thinking more about his build, if I want to go Warrior or Cinderhawk, I don't think it's warranted to go Cinderhawk, but maybe you can go like Warrior into... Actually, I don't even know what his build would be like in the jungle. We'll need to think about that more. Might talk about that in the upcoming my videos, potentially on my live stream as well. My experiences with Wukong. So yeah, I think that right again, trying to make him more bruiser. The thing here as well is that he's actually got 2 knockups now, and the thing with his W now is that his W uses his abilities, he mimics their abilities, and he actually knocks people up as well. So basically Wukong's getting his knockup, that CC is going to be so easy for him, again making him more of a really, really good teamfight champion. Okay, but I mean, to obviously compensate that, they have reduced the knockup duration to 0.75 seconds and spin duration reduced to 2 seconds. But again, you're getting this off twice, right? So it doesn't really matter about the spin duration. Okay, so Xerath, haven't really seen too much in the meta, but looks like a little bit of buffs for him. Jungle champions. Okay, continuing with the third round of changes to diversify and wide in the jungle pool. You notice that Morgana is getting a specific change to her to be viable in the jungle along the buffs to her main roles. Okay, so yeah, again, these champions are especially Teemo. I mean, Teemo, the way I think of Teemo, so he can probably be pretty good with red buff ganks. Obviously, he is what's it called? He's a range champion, so red buff is obviously going to be really, really good for him for some pretty devastating ganks. But I mean, in terms of, he doesn't really have any CC, so it makes ganking a little bit hard. Basically, the wave needs to be in a really good position to pull off good ganks. Shen. So Shen, I definitely think he's much better suited in the top lane. I mean, this is actually pretty significant. Twilight Assault max monster damage from 75 level 1 to now 120, which is pretty significant. Morgana, Brand. Yeah, I mean, again, adding these champs, I don't think they're going to be really viable in high elo, but again, adding a bit more fun, a bit more diversity. I like the approach that Riot's taking here. I mean, Yorick actually, I think it was a little bit of a jungle. There's some Yorick jungle players, so Yorick now raises Graves on a large monster deaths and Mistwalkers take 50% reduced damage from monsters. Okay, so I mean, this is obviously going to make, again, all these changes around making clears better. So yeah, interesting to see if any of these champs become really, really, maybe potentially viable, especially in high elo, but initial reactions, that's going to be a no for me. Okay, funnel mechanics. Funneling continues to be present in solo queue at all parts of the ladder. I mean, it's obviously a very popular boosting strat. I dislike this a lot, this strategy. It just changes the game so much. It's like I'm not even playing League. It's really annoying to verse. So, really like this here. They've actually reduced a lot of experience here. 13 less gold and 50% less experience from lane minions if more than half of your farm is from minions removed at 14 minutes. Great stuff. Love this here. This is going to really affect that little funnel strategy. Top lane significance. Okay, Death's Dance. Okay, so initial reactions. I love these changes, especially what they've done now is they've added armor magic resist to it, which is great because the champions that are going to be building this. I mean, again, thinking about junglers, like obviously Urgot, maybe you can potentially get into jungle, but he's going to love Death's Dance on him. Other champions like Graves, really good to be beefy, bit tanky, harder to deal with. And the other one is Red Cane as well. Again, I'm not too much of a fan of a Red Cane this game, but these changes to Death's Dance definitely makes that a potential really good, maybe second item to get. So I think Death's Dance really, really good changes. Teleport here, this was actually really interesting. So they've actually increased the initial teleport cooldown to 420 seconds, so obviously a big hit in terms of early game, but later stages of the game it is down to 240. And I actually like the shorter strategic emphasis on this because, but obviously you need to worry a lot about teleports in terms of, looking for backdoor split pushing. So I think that this actually adds another pretty good layer to the game. Obviously you're not going to be taking this as a jungler, but I like these changes here actually. And they've actually added a little grant 3 seconds of 30-50% movement speed on completion. I think this is also good because sometimes people can just camp the teleport and just like one shot you onto the tower. So again, I think this is more obviously better for top lane. I'm not a top laner, but I do like these changes in general. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up here. Yeah, so I think that Wukong definitely might be good. Definitely experience some. Again, not too sure on the jungle yet. I definitely think it can be good in terms of top lane. Again, building that Bruiser being really annoying, having that impact in team fights, that CC from his Cyclone. Kane changes, I didn't think really mattered. Kindred, I think it was already okay placed, but these buffs might make him a little bit more popular. Hecarim, I would say that buffs didn't really mean too much, and Urgot obviously going to be pretty interesting to see, especially with the Death's Dance changes. So that's going to be it for this review. Let me know in the comments below of what you thought of the patch 10.6 rundown, or your thoughts, initial thoughts, especially on the Wukong rework. If you have any experience with builds as well, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.